He was a legendary hitman who never failed a mission, but when he's mysteriously turned back into a kid, he needs to go undercover back to school in order to find the cure. The story begins as we meet the hitman named Juzo, who's told that his job will be easy, since there are only a few guards. He heads to a building, where he destroys the camera to make sure he isn't seen, but he finds a gang inside. One of them threatens Juzo with his gun, but he quickly grabs it and starts to shoot the rest of them. One of the men tries to get away with a briefcase, and Juzo sees him, but he's out of bullets, so he trips him instead. The man begs for his life, but he suddenly pulls out his gun and opens fire. He realizes Juzo is gone, but he suddenly reappears behind him and punches him away. After that, Juzo gives the briefcase to his partner Kota, and notes that there were 25 guards in the building, but he wonders why Kota told him there would only be a few. He apologizes to Juzo for screwing up, but he's impressed that Juzo still took care of everyone, and notes that it's what he should have expected from the legendary hitman. Kota manages to open the briefcase, but they wonder why it only has a wasp nest inside it. As Juzo enters his apartment building, a boy accidentally runs into him, and he's scared seeing the look on his face. Juzo thinks about how he's never been good at dealing with kids, and wonders if things might have been different with his family if he had been better at it. He has no idea what to say to his daughter, because his job is the only thing he's good at, but he doesn't even like it. He suddenly gets stung by a wasp, which makes him struggle and collapse, and as he wakes up, he sees his ex-wife Irie. She tells him he's in her lab, and makes him answer questions to make sure he still has his memories. She notes that his target worked with a firm that researched genetic manipulation in living organisms, and the wasp that stung him wasn't normal. She gives him a mirror, and he's shocked to see that he's been turned back into a boy, and he asks if there's any way for him to return to normal. But she explains that she isn't sure, because it isn't easy to analyze what happened to him. She tells him he should take a break from work, but he explains that he needs money to pay for his bills, and he suddenly gets a call from his boss. Juzo admits that something happened to him, but explains that he can still work, so the boss gives him his next job. He tells Juzo to attend a middle school, and explains that he needs Juzo to investigate it, since he's thinking of enrolling his daughter there. Irie thinks it's the perfect job for him, since he never went to middle school, and he explains that he isn't interested, but the boss tells him how much he'll be paid, so he changes his mind. As Juzo puts on his uniform, he doesn't understand why he needs to wear glasses, so Kota explains that it has hidden cameras and microphones, and thinks Juzo will need help, since he's a washed-up old man. Juzo goes to class and introduces himself, but everyone thinks he's a weirdo, and Kota tells him his introduction was terrible, so he thinks about something interesting he can tell his classmates, but accidentally mentions that he likes sniping. Everyone thinks he could end up in jail, so he explains that he was talking about airsoft, but they still find him strange. After class, there are two girls that run into Juzo, and they make fun of him since they think he's a loser, so Kota offers to take care of them, but Juzo tells him to leave them alone. As he returns home, Kota makes him dinner, since he knows that if Juzo is left alone, he'll eat nothing but garlic-loaded ramen. He tells Juzo that in addition to keeping his identity a secret, he needs to make sure he doesn't cause trouble, since his income will drop to zero if he's expelled. The next day, as Juzo attends a lecture, he thinks about how he was taken in by the organization when he was young, and immediately thrown into the field. He's now a 39-year-old man who has gone through a lot, so he thinks there's nothing left for him to learn. But as he pays attention to his teacher, he becomes excited, since he didn't know any of the things being taught. After class, he cries tears of joy, since he never knew studying could be so much fun, and Kota is surprised to see him studying at home. The next day after class, Juzo thinks about how much fun he had in social studies, since they talked about places that he's already seen. As he prepares to leave, he notices a man wearing a panda mask, who attacks the school's guard, and he starts to harass the girls who made fun of him. Kota tells him to leave them, but he can't just stay back and watch, since they're about the same age as his daughter. He throws a chalk box toward the man, and shoots it to make a smoke screen, so that no one will see what he's about to do. He punches the man in the stomach, but the man doesn't go down, so he realizes he got weaker after he turned into a kid. The man lights up a dynamite, so Juzo kicks him in the nuts, and knocks the dynamite out of his hand. He shoots it while it's in the air, and the girls Takata and Boba realize he's the one who saved them, but he acts like he didn't do anything. After that, Juzo's classmates make a group chat and decide to leave him out since he's an outcast, but Takata and Boba ask him to join and thank him for saving them. At night, Juzo can't believe how fast everyone is texting in the group chat, and he thinks middle school is brutal since he can't keep up with the messages, but he still feels better than when he was working as a hitman. Kota still can't believe Juzo likes to study, and he thinks Juzo is trying to broaden the kind of work he can do when he turns back, but he explains that he just enjoys it. Takata and Boba greet him, which makes him nervous, and he tries to put on a smile, but they find him creepy. After that, we see a girl named Norin, who impresses everyone as she wins a race against her classmates and speaks English fluently in class. We learn that Irie told Juzo to make contact with her, since she might have the information they need, but he doesn't think she would be useful. He notes that she's just the daughter of the president of the Mitsuka Pharmaceutical Company, but Irie reminds him they don't know anything about the situation, which is why they need to investigate every lead they find. Kota wonders why Juzo hasn't made any friends, so he explains that he's struggling to fit in, since he's much older than the other students. He decides to talk to Norin, but she finds him creepy and tells him to get lost. After he leaves his class, he thinks about how Norin told him he was creepy, and he's so sad that he collapses, but Takata and Boba suddenly run into him. He tells them what happened, so they reveal that Norin hates boys, but she seems to have everything a girl could ever ask for. They explain that boys have asked her out, but she turned them down without any consideration for how they feel, and even the girls don't hang out with her since she's difficult to approach. Kota asks Juzo what he plans to do about Norin, so he explains that there's nothing he can do since she doesn't talk to boys. He decides to give up on her and goes to a ramen shop, but he's surprised to see her working there. He gives her his order, but he doesn't understand what she's doing there since her family is so rich that she doesn't need to work. He tries to make sense of the situation, but he decides to eat his ramen first, and he finds it delicious, but she tells him to meet her behind the shop after it closes. She doesn't understand why he's there, because the shop is far from the school, so she didn't think any of her classmates would see her. He explains that he lives in that area, but she starts to panic and begs him to keep it a secret, so he promises not to tell anyone. He asks her why she walks home alone, and wonders why no one comes to pick her up since she's rich, so she explains that she hates getting fetched. He wonders why she's working there, so she tells him she knows how blessed she is, and notes that ever since she was little, her parents introduced her to men who would make good husbands for her. But she found it disgusting how they were so nice to her, even though they had just met her, and when she got to middle school, all the boys treated her the same way, which is the reason why she hates them. She wishes to own a ramen shop and live on her own strength, since she hates how her parents want her to just get married and become a housewife. She reveals that her uncle opened the ramen shop since he didn't want to be around rich people all the time, and whenever she was angry, he made her a bowl of ramen to cheer her up. She notes that Juzo reminds her of her uncle, which is why she feels comfortable talking to him, but he thinks it's because he's an old man. He tells her she should live her life the way she wants, since she isn't obliged to do what her parents tell her, and she becomes happy when he praises the ramen she served him. She notes that it doesn't mean he can act friendly with her while they're in school, and they go their separate ways, but a van suddenly pulls up and kidnaps her. Juzo runs after the car, but Kota tells him it's no use, because there's no way he can catch up to it. He climbs a tower, and Kota reminds him he only has a handgun in his bag, but he explains that he knows what he's doing. He takes out his pistol and aims at the van, and Kota thinks he won't hit it, but he aims higher and pulls the trigger. He fires a tracking bullet, which attaches to the van, and Kota can't believe he was able to hit it. The kidnappers assure Norin they won't do anything to her if she cooperates, but one of them touches her face, so their leader Tajima kicks him away and tells him to do his job properly. He asks her to tell them about the new drug her father's company is making, because their client told them she has the secret, but she has no idea what they're talking about. He tells her he went to her uncle's shop, but notes that the food there tasted like trash, and he threatens to destroy it if she doesn't tell him everything. She explains that her uncle has nothing to do with it, and she starts to cry, because she doesn't know what Tajima wants from her. Juzo comes to her rescue, and shoots Tajima in the head, since he can't forgive him for insulting her uncle's ramen. He puts a bag on her head before she can turn around, since he needs to protect his identity, and he notes that he has 2 pieces of advice for the kidnappers. His first advice is to respect the food someone makes for them, but they suddenly interrupt him, so he shoots them down. Kota realizes he's using non-lethal rubber rounds, and he explains that he won't kill anyone when he isn't on the job, but he hears more people approaching. He puts Norin on a cart, and one of the kidnappers sees them, but Juzo pushes the cart into him and kicks him from behind. The other kidnappers shoot at him, but he stops the bullets with the cart and shoots down everyone in his way. He manages to get Norin out of the building, but Tajima drives the van toward them, and Juzo realizes it's bulletproof. Kota thinks he's in trouble, but he pushes the cart forward and uses it to flip the van. As the van crashes, he decides to give his second piece of advice and notes that any man who can't treat a girl kindly is trash. Tajima gets knocked out, and Juzo puts Norin to sleep since he doesn't want her to see his face. He prepares to leave, but as he checks his belongings, he realizes he left his book in the building. Juzo struggles during math class, and he asks Kota to teach him, but Kota explains that he isn't good at math. Juzo calls Irie and asks her for help, but she tells him she has no time since she's already juggling job and housework, and she also needs to find a way to turn him back to normal. She suggests asking the teacher, but he doesn't want to do it, so she tells him to swallow his pride and hangs up on him. The next day, Juzo still doesn't understand the class, which makes him panic because he will have a hard time in the future if he doesn't figure it out. A student named Rio notices something's wrong with him, so he tells Rio everything, and Rio realizes he's having a hard time because his basics are weak. He recalls how he used to fool around when he was in elementary school, and Rio offers to teach him, so they start to study together. Juzo gets a perfect score on the math quiz, so he thanks Rio for his help and promises to buy him a drink. They head to a cafe, but Rio accidentally runs into a man who spills his coffee on his laptop, and he quickly apologizes. Juzo is impressed that while Rio was helping him, he still found time to study, so he thinks Rio must be working toward a huge goal. He reveals that he wants to be a doctor, and he asks Juzo to keep it a secret, but Juzo doesn't think it's something he should be hiding. He reveals that his mom passed away while he was little, and his grandmother took care of him after his father left to get milk, but her health has started to deteriorate, and he wants to help people like her. Juzo starts to cry, and notes that he's nothing compared to Rio, and he wonders if he's terrible with kids since he never treated them as individuals. The man that Rio ran into overhears them, but he calls Rio an idiot for wishing to be a doctor, and tells him to look at the data. Juzo becomes annoyed, and wonders if he should punch him, but Rio stops him, and the man also calls him an idiot, since he's having a hard time with his homework in middle school. The man thinks they should stop working hard, since they'll never amount to anything, so Rio becomes angry and tells him to stop talking. He thinks it's wrong to mock people who don't agree with him, and he refuses to let him discredit the work that his friend is putting in. The other people in the restaurant are also annoyed at him, and they tell him to mind his own business, so he runs out of the cafe. He's angry that they humiliated him in front of everyone, so he follows them after they leave, and plans to kick them into the river. Juzo sees him approaching, so he throws his compass to flip the cycle, and sends him flying into the river. The next day, Kota heads to Juzo's house, and he can't believe how dirty it is, so he cleans it for him. He tells Juzo he should clean his house every once in a while, but he mentions that it isn't something a man should do, so Kota tells him he needs to change his values. As Juzo goes to school, he sees the students trying to get others to join their clubs, and Kota asks him which club he plans to join. A baseball comes toward him, so he throws it back, but it destroys the catcher's glove, and he realizes he should stay away from athletic clubs, since he doesn't want to stand out. Rio notes that he's thinking about joining the kendo group, since he has experience in it, and he plans to balance it out with studying. Juzo notices that there's a home economics club as well, and he thinks it must be filled with girls, but Rio's sister Chisato refuses to let him make such a comment. She tells him to stop differentiating between men and women, since everyone should know how to take care of themselves, and notes that he should understand the value of everyday tasks. She invites him to join the trial club session, and notes that if he refuses to come, she won't allow Rio to be friends with him. He goes to the home economics club room, where Chisato mentions that they'll cook rice balls and miso soup. She tells Juzo that if he gets bored, she will take care of his day-to-day needs for the next 6 months, but if he enjoys himself, he will need to join the club. After he finishes cooking, he tells her the experience was okay, and notes that they should call it a draw since he didn't get bored, but she tells him the contest isn't over. As he goes back home, Kota thinks Juzo is being petty, but he explains that the experience wasn't enough to make him want to join the club. At night, he gets a call from Irie, since he sent her the food he made, and his daughter Kozu tells him that she liked it. He recalls how Chisato told him he should give the food to the people who were close to him, because even though cooking for himself is fun, it's nothing compared to cooking for the people he loves. The next day, Juzo joins the club, and realizes that Norin joined it as well, so she explains that she wants to learn how she can help more at the ramen shop, but tells him to stop acting chummy with her. Kota suddenly gets a notification, and he tells Juzo he has found a way to turn him back to normal, but tells him he will need to marry Norin. Kota explains that the Mitsuka Pharmaceutical Company has posted an announcement that the person who marries her will inherit their company, and he doesn't know what they're after. But he reminds Juzo about the secret the kidnappers wanted to learn about, and notes that he will need to marry Norin to learn about the wasp that stung him. Juzo heads to the ramen shop, since he feels like he can forget everything while he eats there, and he thanks the owner for the food. As he prepares to leave, he tells Norin he has heard how even more people are coming onto her, but he assures her he's there just for the ramen. As he walks her home, she tells him about what her father did, but she's annoyed since he isn't listening to her. He assures her he's paying attention, which makes her laugh, since it's the kind of pointless back and forth she wants to have with friends, and she thinks she might be able to find friends in the school club. Norin and Juzo run from the students in school, but he doesn't know what's going on, so she explains that the club activity she was looking forward to got wrecked, and it made her release all of her pent-up emotions. She knows she messed up, but she asks him to pretend to be her boyfriend, because it will keep the other boys from coming after her. The students start to bully Juzo, and they tell him to either become their errand boy or break up with Norin. He knows he can easily beat them up, but he doesn't want to be suspended or expelled, so he runs away and jumps off the 3rd floor. He hears everyone gossip about his relationship with Norin, so Takata and Boba ask him if he's really dating her, and they praise him for getting away from the bullies. They mention that their school is famous, and there's a group of guys called the Unicorn, which is filled with charismatic men. But they're all after Norin as well, so Juzo needs to be careful of them. At night, Kota tells Juzo he should stop being Norin's fake boyfriend, since he has no plan to marry her. He reveals that the underworld is also after the Mitsuka Pharmaceuticals secret, and since they can't get the information through threats, they're sending undercover agents to the middle school to try and get Norin to marry them. The next day, Norin tells Juzo he doesn't need to pretend to be her boyfriend, since she knows it has been causing him trouble, and she thinks she should handle everything herself. She plans to stop going to the home economics club, and tells him to keep coming to the ramen shop, so that she will have someone to talk to. They're interrupted by a student, but Norin mentions that Juzo isn't her boyfriend anymore, so they should stop bothering him. He notes that if it's really true, she should go out with him instead, since he's strong enough to protect her, but she turns him down. He continues to bother her, but Juzo can't just stand back and watch, so he notes that he and Norin are still together, and tells the boy to get his hands off his woman. He warns Juzo that he spars with adults at the gym, and he tries to punch him, but Juzo easily blocks it and tells him he still needs more training. We see a boy named Shin, who watches them from a distance, and notes that Juzo is tougher than he looks. In a flashback, we see Shin in a dark alley, where a man tries to shoot him, but he dodges the bullets and smashes the man into a wall. A person from the organization praises Shin, calling him a once-in-a-generation talent, and he gives Shin his next mission, where he needs to infiltrate Norin's middle school and get her to marry him. In the present, Norin asks Juzo if he's secretly strong, but he assures her he's never even been in a fight. She doesn't believe him, since the boy he's scared off looked pretty tough, so he tells her it was just a fluke. She decides to stop bothering him about keeping secrets from her, since they're just pretending to be a couple. But she reveals that her father gave her a pen, and told her to give it to Juzo, but she doesn't understand why he would do that. After that, Shin transfers to Juzo's class, but Juzo immediately realizes he's from the organization, and everyone's amazed by how handsome he is. The teacher tells him to introduce himself, but he becomes nervous, and he can't say anything. He sits beside Norin, and she tries to talk to him, but he puts his head down, since he can't handle how cute she is. He knows there's no way he can talk to such a beautiful girl, but he needs to do his job, so he gives her a letter, which mentions that he likes her, and he'll wait for her in the courtyard after school. Norin asks Juzo to come with her, but Shin overhears them, and explains that things will get complicated if she brings Juzo. She can sense that something's different about Shin, so she turns around, but she's shocked to see that he has a pacifier. He apologizes for freaking her out and notes that he has extreme stage fright, but he can be normal if he acts like a baby. She can't believe he's saying such nonsense with a straight face, and Juzo knows that the organization is filled with weirdos, but he thinks Shin is too far gone. Norin tells Shin that Juzo is her boyfriend, but he holds her hands and asks her to give him a chance to win her over. As she looks closely at him, she realizes he's extremely handsome, but she can't get over the fact that he's using a pacifier. She thinks there are a lot of ways to turn him down, but she ends up punching him in the face since she knows that he's been ordered to come after her. She explains that by confessing to her as a joke, he's making fun of the other boys who asked her out, so she thinks he deserves to get hit. He's surprised by how straightforward she is, which makes him fall in love with her for real, and he assures her he's being serious. He suddenly kicks Juzo, and he knows that Juzo is also in the organization. He challenges Juzo to a duel, and notes that the winner will get Norin, but Juzo refuses to hand her over. Shin notes that the fountain pen Juzo has as proof of who the real fiancé is, and they realize her father has posted new guidelines, which mention that whoever has the pen in the end will be her fiancé. Norin hates the idea that people will need to fight over her, and she mentions that Juzo is just pretending to be her boyfriend, since she had no plans to date anyone. As the duel is about to begin, Shin notes that his goal is to make Juzo put a pacifier in his mouth within an hour, which makes Takata and Boba burst out laughing, while Juzo and Norin can't believe how dumb his goal is. Shin once again confesses his love to Norin, and notes that if he wins, he wants to use her lap as a pillow, but she tells him that will never happen. As the fight begins, Shin charges at Juzo, who dodges his attacks, but he's surprised by how skilled Shin is. He runs away, but Kota thinks it will be difficult to do that while hiding his identity, so Juzo decides to dodge the attacks in the most pathetic way possible. Shin notes that when Norin turned him down, he wondered what the difference was between him and Juzo, and he realized that one of them is a baby, while the other one isn't, but Juzo has no idea what he's talking about. He thinks that if he puts the pacifier in Juzo's mouth, both of them will become babies, and he'll become superior to Juzo. As Shin continues to attack him, he wonders if Juzo's feelings for Norin are greater than his, which makes Juzo think about how he doesn't have any feelings for her, but he suddenly remembers Kozu. As the time for the duel is about to end, Shin throws a pacifier at Juzo, and he dodges it, but Shin suddenly pulls a string, which launches countless pacifiers toward him. He jumps to dodge them, but Shin ties his hands up, and he steps on a rake, which has a pacifier attached to its handle. The handle comes toward his mouth, so everyone thinks it's all over for him, but it suddenly stops, and Shin realizes Juzo put a string in front of him when he jumped back earlier. Juzo wins the duel, and tells Shin he also has feelings for Norin, but they're completely different than Shin's. He thinks about how he's been projecting Kozu onto Norin, and since he couldn't do much for Kozu, he wants to protect Norin and make sure she's happy. We see Juzo in his class, as his teacher announces that they will have midterms next week, so they must do their best to prepare for the exam. His friends are nervous since it's their first exam in middle school, but Ryo notices that Juzo is fired up, because he's determined to do well. Kota tells him he'll blow his cover if he doesn't relax, so he calms down and pretends that he's also nervous. The next day, Takata and Boba notice that Norin is happy since the boys are too busy to pursue her, and she hopes the test week will last forever. Takata bumps into Juzo, and they realize he looks like a mess since he pulled an all-nighter to study for the exam. Ryo tells him he needs to sleep, but he explains that he couldn't stop himself from studying and didn't realize he studied all night until he saw the sun rise. After class, Juzo studies again, and Kota tells him he's overdoing it, but he tells Kota to mind his own business. He notes that he has plans tonight, so Juzo should eat at Jabami's place, and tells him to consider it a change of pace. That evening, Norin sees Juzo walking in the streets, and she decides to follow him, but she sees him talk to a crossdresser named Gakota, who welcomes him into a strange bar. She can't believe what she's seeing, and wonders what he's doing there, but we learn that it's just the bar of a woman named Jabami, and he's just there to eat dinner. Jabami recalls that she didn't recognize Juzo at first, but Kota revealed that he's the legendary Hitman, and Jabami couldn't believe he turned into a kid. Irie suddenly joins them, and wonders why Juzo has eye bags, but he tells her she isn't supposed to drink there since she needs to take care of Kozu. She explains that their daughter is already old enough to take care of herself, and she understands why he's been studying hard, since he wasn't allowed to fail as a hitman. But she notes that it's okay to screw up as a middle schooler, and tells him he's been looking more alive ever since he turned into a kid. After that, Juzo walks Irie to the station, but Norin sees them leave, and she wonders why he came out with an older woman. The students have their midterm exams, and Juzo ends up with average scores, but he thinks it's okay since he can do better in the finals. Most of his friends also perform well, but Shin is sad since he got 0 in all of the subjects, and Norin wonders if Juzo isn't really a middle schooler, since he behaves like an old man. Chisato teaches the members of the Home Economics Club how to sew on a button, and Juzo gives it a try, but he can't get it right. Norin reveals that she also screwed up, so they ask their seniors to help them, and they finally learn how to do it. Juzo and Norin meet a boy named Kito, who waters the sunflowers he planted, and Norin is excited to watch them bloom. Juzo wonders why she's in a good mood, so she explains that she likes the Home Economics Club, since it helps them learn useful skills. The following day, Chisato tells her club members they need to make rice balls for the baseball team, but a girl explains that their delivery is for the senior league team. She notes that there's a unicorn on the team, and Chisato realizes they might run into a problem, so she tells Juzo and Norin they can skip the activity, but they decide to go through with it. The club heads to the baseball field, where the players gather to enjoy the rice balls, but Juzo notices a tall boy named Tendo, who thanks the Home Economics Club for the food. He recognizes Juzo and Norin, and challenges Juzo to a duel, telling him the winner will become Norin's boyfriend. She tells Tendo she doesn't even know him, but he explains that he isn't into her, and notes that he just wants to crush Juzo. He explains that he wants everyone to watch him, and reveals that his dream is to become the first triple-threat sportsman in history, but Juzo has no idea what he's talking about. Kota looks him up, and realizes he's an ace in baseball, soccer, and basketball, and he tells everyone he wants to become the best player in all 3 sports. He tells Juzo he doesn't really care about him, since he's just an extra from the Home Economics Club, which is full of losers. Tendo just wants to defeat him since he looks annoying, and he accepts the challenge, because he wants to make him pay for mocking his club. Tendo tells him they'll compete in futsal, and tells him he can bring as many people as he needs, but he explains that he doesn't need the handicap, and Tendo thinks it won't be a fair fight if he only brings one person. The coach of the baseball team apologizes for Tendo's rudeness, but his friends explain that they respect him despite his bad attitude, since he's the best player on their team. After that, the members of the Home Economics Club want to make Tendo pay for disrespecting them, and Norin is embarrassed since he made her sound like a self-important girl. Shin decides to participate in the match because he wants to punish Tendo for what he did to her, and Kito also wants to play, since Tendo mocked everyone in their club. That evening, we see Tendo playing with his friend, who wonders why he picked a fight with Juzo, and we learn that he finds him interesting, since he saw his fight with Shin. His friend notes that he'll only do the bare minimum during the futsal match, but Tendo notes that he doesn't expect much from him, so he becomes angry and kicks the ball hard. But Tendo still easily catches it, and tells his friend it was a good pass. Everyone prepares for the futsal match, and Juzo tells Tendo to apologize to the Home Economics Club if he loses, but he thinks it will never happen, since he's confident that he'll win. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.